The video that got it all started. Well, not technically, but year 5 of living in Fort Collins. One of my favorite videos to shoot. And honestly, when I was watching the first time I shot this in Old Town Square 5 years ago, I could see myself scared, nervous, and don't get me wrong, it is still not comfortable to sit in front of a camera, but I've gotten a little bit more comfortable. And over the last 5 years, I've dove in to what it is living in Fort Collins. I've watched city council meetings every single week for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been, but it's been a long time. That's 3-4 hours of people just talking, and a lot of times not about exciting things. But that being said, I've dove in to what it is living in Fort Collins. And in year 5, I'm excited to talk to you, someone who's watching the Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel, just what it is like living in Fort Collins, eating, sleeping, playing. Now we're gonna talk about economy, Old Town, people, culture, lifestyle. I'm excited to do take 5 of living in Fort Collins. My name is Patrick Soukup, and this is the Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel, where you come to learn all of those things. And if you're considering relocating to the area, my team and I are licensed real estate agents in the state of Colorado. So give us a call, text, or email. We would love to be an asset on your team if that is a consideration. Without any further delay, let's jump into today's video, living in Fort Collins in 2025. Let's go. Now we can't start without discussing where we started, in Old Town Fort Collins. It's the heart of Fort Collins. And between the original video and now, it was ranked one of the top 10 best downtowns in all of the United States. And I would say it is definitely the darling of Fort Collins, where people go to see the holiday lights during Christmas, to go visit Santa Claus at his workshop, to go see all of the flowers, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are planted each spring and fall with our rose beds, our flower beds, our planters. It's just an absolutely gorgeous and well-maintained downtown Fort Collins. And there are projects that have taken place between the time I originally shot and this video, such as Morningstar. There used to be a Taco John's there, and now it's a world-class senior living, which has always kind of been a little bit unique, but there's gonna be ground floor retail that have great new tenants that come in. Now, one thing that I would say that living in Fort Collins and the strength of what downtown and Old Town has done is we have seen some rents increase for commercial spaces that haven't necessarily accommodated the density that is currently in downtown. Now, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we've got a project that's just been submitted to our conceptual review that is essentially a remake of the Wells Fargo building and then a 9-story apartment and condo building. Now, we don't have a lot of height downtown. I was just down there today, and I was looking, I was like, oh man, that's a beautiful, there's an affordable housing, 140 West Oak, or 140 Oak, I believe. The Elevations Credit Union, there's been some great condos there. There's 14 townhomes that are planned off of Oak Street. So the density is coming downtown, but the reason I say that is because we have seen some turnover of restaurants because, well, the rents that they are being charged aren't necessarily making it super profitable for them to be there now. In the next 5, 10, 15 years, unless you have a very favorable rent currently downtown, you're gonna see rent prices increase because of the densification of downtown and the desire of city council for there to be a great max transit line, public transportation, a hub and development along kind of those big areas to try to minimize on-street traffic. But downtown, Old Town Fort Collins, North College Avenue has seen a ton of redevelopment and development. The River District has become something that's special, and the overpass at LeMay has connected North Fort Collins to downtown and South Fort Collins. So Old Town continues to be the gem and darling of Fort Collins. If you're coming here just to visit, you're gonna go check it out, and it's something worth spending some time in. But after helping hundreds of families move to Northern Colorado over the last 5 years, we continuously see the #1 driver of why people are moving here is lifestyle. The outdoor focus, culture, people, get away from the work hustle culture, get outside, 300 days of sun. Now, you know, if you look at statistics, it's probably closer to like 250, but I would say the sun is out, people are out, they want to be healthy, a lot of great events, a lot of great people. Generally speaking, in my opinion, people are pretty darn friendly. A lot of different comments of doors being held open, which would never take place in different states. I'm not going to throw any under the bus. And other people who have made comments that suggested that maybe there are other states that are friendlier. And I've had some theories about that as well. I'll throw this one under the bus because it's not a bad one, but Wisconsin. People are friendlier in Wisconsin than in Colorado. And my retort to that was, well, yeah, that's because in Wisconsin, you're stuck inside for 5-6 months with the cold, humid, freezing temperatures that when you have the chance to get outside and have interactions, of course, you're going to be absolutely spot on your game and want to have all of the best interactions possible and as friendly as possible because you don't want to have to go back to that house that you just spent 4 or 5 months in locked up trying to stay warm. Whereas in Colorado, you could be golfing in December, hiking in January. You could be outdoors 365 days. Now, albeit some of those days you're going to want to bundle up and some of those days you are going to want to stay inside. But generally speaking, any given day across the year is an opportunity for you to get outside and enjoy what is the lifestyle of living in Fort Collins. Going and enjoying some breweries, some music at Washington's, the Aggie, or the Lincoln Center. We see ourselves going to a lot. It is just one of those communities that people enjoy getting out and generally, from my perspective, are pretty friendly, albeit could be some states that are friendlier. But what is it like living and working here? Well, I would say a lot of people who have relocated here generally have a remote job opportunity, or at least one of the two couples, or if it is a couple, one of the two people that are moving here is working remotely. That allows them to move anywhere. The other one might have more of a physical location need or a job that's bringing them here, be it let's just say OtterBox, Woodward Governor, Colorado State University, the city of Fort Collins, lots of different jobs that bring people to Fort Collins, but one of the partners is probably able to remote work, allowing that flexibility because we do see a lot of dual income households and one of the two are remote workers. Now, how is the economy in Fort Collins? Well, Colorado State University is our absolute backbone foundation, largest employer in Fort Collins with a huge a population of 35,000 students that count towards the population of Fort Collins. And then places like Woodward that are a very strong company. And then we have funds that are struggling over the last 5 years. 5 years ago, OtterBox was crushing it. They're innovative, growing, and there was some disposition of assets from the previous owner and founder, Kurt Richardson, throughout Fort Collins. But then they just seemed to go through some struggles, and his son, J.C. Richardson, took over as the CEO just about 2 years ago, I believe it is, and has seen a really big struggle to right the ship. And I think he's going to do it because I'm very excited, and he's got everything that is in the right direction, but they've gone through some, I wouldn't call it growing pains, I would call it pains. So hopefully companies like that, companies like Madwire, Broadcom, Intel, and startups, we're still not seeing a startup hub here. People who are going through and graduating from CSU are having to go to bigger metros to generate an income to make the return on their investment of school worthwhile, and then coming back when they have a more stable or ability to do remote work. But startups are happening, just probably not at a pace or something that's exciting to take note of. It's not to say they're not here. I do know there's some unicorns in Fort Collins that got their start here in town. Just not a lot of them. But that being said, the overall economy seems to be doing well. And I would say our job outlook is a focus that City Council should pay attention to. How can we bring and keep high-paying jobs in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado to accommodate the lifestyle that people love, the housing prices that are what they are? So our economy and jobs, while strong, could be better, and hopefully that continues to be a point of focus for City Council. And over the last 5 years, I had kids. When I shot this in 2020, I had 2 kiddos. When I shot the OG video in 2020, I had 2 kiddos, but they were both under a year old. School wasn't even a consideration. I knew that Poudre School District was a great school district and that people moved here because it was such a great opportunity, but I didn't, besides my personal experience and not really paying attention in the sense of like how good of a school or system it was, I just always knew I was safe. Teachers generally stayed at the schools that they were there for years, decades even. But then my daughter is now in 1st grade, son in preschool, gonna be in kindergarten next year, and we are really starting to dive into both recreational opportunities for kids as well as the school district. And we have had nothing but great positive interactions. Poudre School District just came in with an 87% plus graduation rate of their 2024 class, beating the state average of 84%. So it's a phenomenal school district with a focus on remaining fiscally healthy. And the reason I say that is because over the last 12 months, the Poudre School District had a ton of turbulent waters. In fact, they were considering closing 5 schools, but ultimately there was enough community gathering and getting together saying, no, this seems way too fast to be making these big of a decisions. Let's pause it. And then subsequently, the Poudre School District put on basically a $49 million annual addition to our mill levies through property taxes that equates to about $125 per household on a 600,000-ish home. So nothing too crazy, but contributing to what is a staple in Fort Collins and a strength of the community, Poudre School District, to allow us time to make these tough decisions, because there are probably going to be schools that have to close down. Beatty is generally one that comes across that as far as a neighborhood that has aged. Our median age in Fort Collins has gone from 29 years to 39 years over the last 5 years. And it's an aging demographic. Not too many young families in that neighborhood specifically. A lot of them moved east of I-25, to Timnath, to southeast Fort Collins, northeast Fort Collins, the Bloom development that's going on right now, to more affordable areas. And those schools' numbers are strong, but places like Beatty are absolutely struggling with numbers. So I would say the Poudre School District overall, killing it. Timnath Middle High, awesome. Fossil, Rocky, Fort Collins High School, and Poudre High School are our 5 main high schools, with other opportunities for classical schools, charter schools that you can absolutely explore. But those are kind of the 5 main public high schools in Fort Collins. And from there, I would say, generally speaking, we've seen a very strong school foundation in the Poudre School District. And hopefully we can right the ship, be fiscally responsible, make good decisions, and have a vibrant, healthy school district now and into the future. Now, what makes Fort Collins great is absolutely the people. The people that have moved here, I've used the ratio 90% to 10%. 90% of the people who have moved to Fort Collins are wanting to get engaged, wanting to volunteer, wanting to give back, wanting to give to the community that brought them here, got their attention, and is then currently giving back to them and their family in spades. 10% are coming here. I wouldn't use the word leech, but I wouldn't use the word giver either. And so generally speaking, the people who move here want to get involved, and I would highly recommend, if you're considering moving to Fort Collins in northern Colorado, being in that 90%. The community, what you give to it, it will give back to you tenfold. And we see that time and time again. There are individuals like Pat Stryker, Ginger Graham, Jack Graham, that are givers to the community, that give their time, intelligence, money, and the city of Fort Collins has become better for it. And there are those people, and then hundreds more that you just don't necessarily hear about, that are getting involved with their church, their volunteer program, getting involved with the mission, and finding causes that speak to their heart to help bring Fort Collins up and raise it and make it a better place than they found it. So I would say overall, the people of Fort Collins, while maybe not as nice as Wisconsin, generally want to be here, want to give back, want to get involved. And city council, I'm excited about city council. Maybe politically, they've got different, not necessarily mentalities that I do by any means, but I would say in general, the people of the city council want to do well by it. And they're also being reasonable when it comes to things like greenhouse gases and building performance standards. It's a big deal coming through, and it's a huge financial implication, $250 million plus potentially that would be required of commercial building owners or building owners of 5,000 plus square feet of updates and renovation to HVAC, insulation, building performance, and efficiencies. But they're saying, hey, let's pause. Let's do a few pilot programs to see what, if any, changes we should make. How can we make this smoother and easier? Because we do have some pretty aggressive goals as a community. 80% carbon reduction by 2030 with 100% carbon neutral by 2050. And to do that, there are going to be some big steps that we have to take as a community. But while doing that, they're wanting to make sure that, hey, we've got to make sure that our business and economy stay vibrant, because without jobs and a strong economy, what is a city? So I'm excited about the city of Fort Collins now and moving into the future because of the people that are here, born and raised like myself, the people who have moved here that want to give back and get involved, and the governors of the leaders of our city with their intentionality behind keeping Fort Collins strong in its roots and ready and planning for the future. Now, since 2020, the housing prices have increased pretty dramatically, like across the rest of the United States. But we are already starting at a higher median price than the rest of the United States. So we are coming in. And whenever we get ranked on best places to live, best places to retire, or safest, and there's always a dynamic of that with affordability. And that's where we probably lack the most comparatively to other smaller communities, smaller metros that are typically on these lists. Fort Collins houses, now, the positive thing. Since about middle of 2022, when interest rates went to about 6.5%, our median sales price has just barely increased from about $610,000 to $625,000 over 2.5 years. So what we have was a person who moved here from California who is a good golfer and a good friend, and I was trying to struggle with the words of what I was using, but essentially it's a recursion to the mean. We have seen 5.5% annual appreciation of homes in Fort Collins really since the 1970s. And with a 15% and 20% appreciation in 2020 and 2021, it needed some flatlining. So while incomes are having an opportunity to increase over the last couple of years, housing prices have remained relatively flat. But it's not to say that it's not a cheap place to live or anything along those lines. Perspective is key. I'm born and raised here in Fort Collins. For me, it's pretty expensive. I've got a lot of friends who are police officers or teachers or coaches, work in the restaurant industry, and if they didn't buy a house in the 2010s and they're trying to buy a house now, it's quite difficult. When you compare housing prices and interest rates, affordability has really been the main topic of concern for people across the United States and not excluding Fort Collins. But there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We've got some phenomenal developments like the Bloom development in Northeast Fort Collins, where they are building single-family detached houses for under $500,000. With a focus from a local developer in Hartford Homes, they are wanting to provide an affordable, now remember perspective, affordable if you're coming from maybe a place like somewhere in Kansas, and affordable to you is $250,000. But affordable to somebody in Fort Collins for a single family detached house is under $500,000. Now, there are developments like that are happening. There are builder incentives. There are communities throughout northern Colorado that are helping offload some of that housing cost because their original cost of land and development is a lot less than if they bought prime middle of town Fort Collins. So there are opportunities like that, as well as Colorado just passed the House bill for ADUs, rentals, housing affordability because you could build an ADU and offset some of your mortgage with the ADU income. Your equity in the house increases because you're able to build an ADU. The rental generally will have a bigger supply because, well, now there's 35,000, 40,000 plus housing units that could potentially build ADUs on it. And that's across the state of Colorado. So there are some interesting things that are happening in regards to housing affordability, a desire for affordability, and some lessening of governmental restrictions on what you can do with your land. So when I do this again in the next 5 years, now I do this annually, but in 5 years when I do this again, it'll be interesting to see how many people picked up and implemented building ADUs on their lawn. I've considered it. Maybe I build a podcast studio, get out of this dungeon that is my basement. So the housing affordability is a challenge, but I think it's something that both the state of Colorado, the city of Fort Collins, local developers are addressing. And ultimately, the market's going to dictate it. There's only so many lots and houses in Fort Collins, northern Colorado. And when you talk about a population of about 180,000 people, Larimer County, 350,000 people, Weld County approaching 350,000 people and growing, there's only so much space and there's only so much speed that we can implement to build out and add more houses. And overall, the market is going to dictate a lot of that. But that being said, the market's dictated a flatlining of prices over the last 2.5 years. So the market's going to recurse, I don't know what that is, a recursion to the mean to get us back to that annualized 5.5% general appreciation that we've seen over the last 40, 50 years. And at that time, yeah, it's just a matter of, is northern Colorado still a desirable place to live? Do people want to move here? And if so, which it seems like it is, there will be a supply and demand imbalance and prices will remain relatively strong. So while we are attacking it head on with different strategies, there are other headwinds that are going against us. But that being said, what is happening next in Fort Collins? What gets me excited about the community? Well, I would say those developments, the excitement of downtown Fort Collins, the 9-story building that's going through the review process on where the Wells Fargo building was. I would say the development and beautification of Mulberry with the Bloom project and other projects taking place in the city of Fort Collins annexing into Mulberry, a $60 million infrastructure plan for the overpass at Mulberry and I-25. That entire corridor is going to look gorgeous sooner than later. The development at Prospect and I-25 with Timnath and Timnath Middle High School and the flexing of that area. It is beautiful as far as an entry point, but has really been forgotten as far as development. Timnath, Ladera, Windsor, Rain Dance, and other developments in Rain Dance. Johnstown, US 34 and I-25, both on the Loveland side and basically the Greeley side. I mean, you're not Greeley for a while, but essentially the Greeley side and Loveland side. There are exciting things happening all across northern Colorado. And living in Fort Collins, I get to enjoy that. Like I said, we go and visit. I used to box in Greeley. I would drive 45 minutes to get to the east side of Greeley. Our family goes and has fun at the main event. In fact, we had a client appreciation event with over 100 clients coming and enjoying this event that we put on at the main event in a private room. And it's just great that we have that space and opportunity in Fort Collins to go and have it. There are so many different things that we could talk about, but this video is already too long. And I absolutely enjoy making it because it makes me realize how much I'm lucky to live here and share what I'm experiencing with you. Now, if you have any questions or any specific comments, or let me know, especially if you're living here or moving here, what you're most excited about Fort Collins now and into the future. What gets you excited about Fort Collins? I've told you mine, now tell me yours. Thank you for watching, and until next time, everybody, take care.